Prince William was calm until a forgotten letter from Queen Elizabeth II was placed in his hands. The seal was untouched. The handwriting was hers. Within moments of reading it, William visibly collapsed. What did the Queen write? And why was it hidden until now? This changes everything. A quiet morning. A shocking revelation. It was supposed to be another routine engagement. Prince William, dressed sharp and composed, moved through his royal schedule as he always did. Handshakes, polite nods, words of duty. But nothing prepared him for what came next. A senior royal aide quietly approached him with a message. A discovery had been made, a sealed envelope, unearthed from deep inside the royal archives. At first glance, it looked like a piece of ordinary correspondence, until William saw the signature on the front. Queen Elizabeth II, his grandmother. The woman who had led the monarchy for 70 years, mentored him in silence, and shaped his life more than anyone else, had left something behind. And it was only now, months after her passing in 2022, being handed to him. The room grew still. Courtiers who had worked in the palace for decades leaned in. No one expected this. Not now. Not ever. William held the envelope, his fingers tense around the paper. The royal seal was intact, unopened, preserved. The moment he realized what it was, something personal, something meant only for him, his shoulders dropped. It wasn't just surprise. It was weight, history, legacy. He didn't speak. He didn't smile. He only stared at it, silent. When he finally opened the envelope, the hush was total. One aide later described the atmosphere as unbreathable. The prince read quietly and visibly collapsed into his chair. Not dramatically, not physically ill, but emotionally crushed. The strength he carried as heir to the throne melted away for a moment. In that letter was something no one else could carry. And from that point on, his day, his mood, even his future, would never be the same. Coming up next, where did this forgotten letter come from? And why did it take so long to reach the man it was meant for? The letter's hidden past. The letter handed to Prince William wasn't fresh. It wasn't modern. It was old. A relic from another time. In fact, it dates back to over 2 decades ago, long before William had stepped into the full weight of his royal destiny. At the time it was written, he was still a teenager, and the world was still led by a woman called Queen Elizabeth II. So how did such a personal message disappear? How does a letter from the monarch to her grandson simply vanish? Turns out, the answer lies in the vast royal archives, a maze of documents, photos, private journals, and correspondence that spans generations. Sources close to the palace say the letter had been stored away, likely by staff handling the Queen's estate following her passing in September 2022. It wasn't part of the official record. It wasn't catalogued as a state item. It was placed inside a private family chest, possibly mixed in with old photographs or Christmas cards. Only during a recent inventory review, tied to a quiet reorganization of the late Queen's belongings, did the letter resurface. The envelope was still sealed, marked simply with William's name. And here's where things get interesting. Some believe the letter was intentionally hidden, not by the Queen, but by those close to her. The message may have been deemed too private or too powerful. Others suggest it was misplaced, lost in the shuffle of decades of royal paperwork and only rediscovered thanks to a sharp-eyed archivist. Either way, its reappearance now is no coincidence. Why now? Why not after the funeral? Why not during the transition of power? Royal insiders whisper that the letter was originally meant to be passed down when the time was right. But who decides when that time comes, and why was William not told sooner? This uncertainty has fueled a storm inside the palace. Some believe the Queen had written multiple letters to different members of the family. Others think this was the only one, the one meant for the future king. A message from a grandmother who knew her time was nearing an end. And now that quiet piece of paper, held silently in William's hands, has forced the present to confront the past. In the next chapter, we dive into what the letter actually said and why it left a man raised to be strong, completely undone. Words from a grandmother to her grandson. The contents of the letter were not written by a monarch. They were written by a grandmother. As Prince William unfolded the aged parchment, he didn't find royal orders or cold formalities. He found warmth, he found memory, and above all, he found love. It began simply. "To my dear William," the note reportedly started, in Queen Elizabeth's unmistakable handwriting. No titles, no formalities, just William. From there, her words unfolded like a time capsule, referencing moments from his childhood, recalling the way he smiled at the Trooping the Color parade in 1992, how he once danced behind the palace curtains during a Christmas Eve at Sandringham, and the quiet kindness she always saw in him. "I see in you," she reportedly wrote, "the grace of your mother and the strength of your grandfather. Use both. One will teach you to love, the other will teach you to lead." That single sentence struck him hard. There were references to Princess Diana, not by name, but unmistakable. Gentle nods to the woman who raised him in warmth and walked him through heartache until the world took her too soon. And then came the words that silenced the room. "If you are reading this, I am gone. But you must know, your duty will test your heart. And when that happens, remember, you are not just a prince. You are a person. Lead as both." It wasn't strategy. It wasn't history. It was a message of guidance, written quietly, preserved patiently, and delivered at the moment William needed it most. For years, he had lived between roles: father, husband, prince, and one day, king. But this letter reminded him of something he'd lost in the shuffle: being a grandson. And for that brief moment, in that quiet room inside Kensington Palace, surrounded by aides and advisors who suddenly didn't know what to say, William allowed himself to feel. Not as a royal, but as a man. And that emotional collapse? It wasn't weakness, it was release. But with it came a question he couldn't ignore. Why had no one told him about this letter before? And why was it hidden until now? That question leads us into the next moment. A moment full of confusion, doubt, and a flicker of betrayals. The emotional blow to William. It's one thing to receive a letter from the Queen. It's another to realize you should have read it years ago. When Prince William looked up from the final lines of that letter, something shifted in him. Gone was the confident royal expression. In its place, disbelief, sadness, and something even deeper: a quiet anger. He had lost his grandmother in September 2022, but here she was, speaking to him through words written long before her passing. He had mourned her publicly, delivered speeches, walked behind her coffin with stoic grace. But no one told him this message existed. Why now? Why like this? That thought haunted him in real time. Witnesses in the room said he sat down. head in his hands, completely disconnected from the moment around him. Some thought he was overwhelmed. Others thought he was remembering every personal moment they had shared, every quiet talk, every piece of advice she gave him as a boy. But beneath that emotion was something sharper. This letter should have been in his hands long ago. He should have heard these words before making the decisions he's already had to make about his role, his family, even his mother's legacy. The delay made it feel like a stolen goodbye. And that's when the collapse happened. Not just physically, but emotionally. His voice cracked when he spoke. He reportedly said, "She wanted me to know, and no one told me." There was no one to blame outright, but questions were flying fast. Did someone inside the palace hold back the letter? Was it meant to be hidden until a particular moment? Or was it forgotten entirely, swallowed by bureaucracy, lost in the vaults of royal procedure? Whatever the cause, William felt betrayed, not by his grandmother, but by those who had control over her final words. And now, in the aftermath, he's left with the weight of those words. His grandmother believed in him, not just as the next king, but as a man. She saw his future, she trusted his heart, and she left him something no crown could replace: a final message of truth. But now the question becomes, what will he do with it? That's where we go next, into the mysterious circumstances behind the letter's delay and the hidden hands that kept it from him for all this time. Why was the letter kept hidden? That's the question Prince William couldn't shake, and neither could anyone watching. If the letter from Queen Elizabeth II was written long ago, possibly years before her passing in 2022, then why did it only surface now? Why hadn't he been given it at the time of her death? Or even before that, during a key life event like his marriage in 2011, or when he became Prince of Wales in 2022? Theories quickly began swirling inside the palace. Some claimed the letter had been stored with other personal documents, hidden among hundreds of handwritten notes, keepsakes, and royal diaries. Sources say it was discovered only recently by palace archivists conducting a review of the Queen's estate as part of a larger archival process that began in early 2025, nearly 3 years after her death. Others weren't so sure. There are whispers, quiet, careful whispers, that certain senior courtiers may have known about the letter long before, that it was intentionally kept sealed, protected, even withheld. But withheld from who? And why? One insider put it simply, not everything meant for the future is handed over in the present. Especially not in this family. The royal household is famous for controlling narratives, pacing emotional disclosures, and shielding heirs from unnecessary weight. But in this case, the delay backfired. What was meant to offer guidance had now caused shock, grief, and even a fracture in trust. William reportedly confronted his private secretary within hours of reading the letter. He asked directly, "Did you know?" No answer confirmed or denied anything. Just silence. And in the royal world, silence says everything. If someone had deliberately hidden the letter, it raised bigger questions about the inner workings of the monarchy. Who decides what gets passed on? And who decides when? Even more concerning, if this letter was missed, what else might still be buried? Suddenly, a simple envelope was no longer just a message. It was a spark, a trigger, and it exposed something dangerous lurking beneath royal polish: secrecy. And now, that secrecy had lit a fuse. Because William wasn't just the recipient of a late letter anymore. He was the symbol of something unraveling. What followed next would shake more than just the prince. It would send ripples through every branch of the royal family. The ripple. Through the royal family. The moment the letter was read, it stopped being personal. King Charles III was reportedly informed within minutes. He had just returned from a brief engagement in Scotland when the call came in. "William has received a private letter from Her Majesty. He's shaken." Sources close to Charles say he didn't speak for a full 10 seconds, then simply replied, "What letter?" That single question echoed through the palace halls, because if Charles, the Queen's own son, had no knowledge of the message, it meant something dangerous. He had been left out too. Or worse, it meant others had handled her legacy without him. Tensions inside the family quickly began to stir. Camilla, now Queen Consort, reportedly asked to see the contents of the letter, but was told it was personal, not a matter of state. That didn't sit well with her, insiders say. If it affects William's future, it affects the crown, she was heard saying behind closed doors. Princess Anne, ever the observer, chose silence, but even she was seen speaking privately with William within the next 48 hours. The first time in weeks the two had met alone. Even the younger royals, Zara, Eugenie, Beatrice, reportedly reached out quietly, asking, "Are there more?" As in, more letters, more hidden notes, more messages from the Queen waiting to be unearthed. The ripple wasn't just emotional, it was structural. The firm, as insiders call the royal machine, scrambled to manage the story. Publicly, nothing was said. No comment, no confirmation. But privately, strategies were shifting. Crisis teams discussed damage control. Should the letter be acknowledged in press? Denied? Published? Meanwhile, William remained silent, but resolute. He had read the words. He had felt the truth. And now, he had decisions to make. Not just about the letter, but about the system that delayed it. Because, for the first time, the future king wasn't just thinking about his grandmother's voice. He was thinking about how loud his own voice might need to become. And as the palace tried to contain the fallout, one thing had already slipped beyond their control. The public had found out. Up next, the media firestorm ignites, and the world takes sides. Some behind William, some questioning everything. But all eyes now are on the letter. Public reaction and media storm. By the time dawn broke the next morning, the story was already everywhere. Prince William, overwhelmed by secret letter from Queen Elizabeth, splashed across UK front pages. In the US, headlines followed suit. The hidden note that brought a prince to his knees. Within 24 hours, footage from outside Kensington Palace was swarming with reporters, fans, and flashing cameras. The media didn't hesitate. They ran full investigations. Royal commentators guessed at the letter's content. Body language experts dissected William's visible collapse. Every angle was explored, from the Queen's tone to the timeline of the letter's discovery. And the internet? It exploded. Across TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube, clips labeled "William's Collapse" racked up millions of views. People posted side-by-side videos of William's past speeches and his appearance just hours after the incident. You could see it. The weight, the grief, the pressure. Memes, of course, followed. But so did sympathy. The public saw something they rarely get. A future king stripped of protocol. Just a grandson hurting. One royal fan posted, "This isn't a scandal. This is heartbreak. That letter was stolen time, and he's grieving all over again. Another wrote, "We lost the Queen. He lost her twice. Obtate toys, once in death, and now in delayed words." But not all reactions were gentle. Some questioned the palace itself. If a letter this personal could be lost, what else was being hidden? Others speculated if the contents were being suppressed, not for privacy, but for control. One bold headline asked, "Did the firm silence the Queen's final message to her grandson?" Even royal biographers stepped in, suggesting this moment could alter the public's perception of the monarchy, from being untouchable to being emotionally distant, even within its own bloodline. Public trust, already fragile post-Harry and Meghan, began shaking again. And this time, it wasn't a Sussex scandal. It was the heir to the throne, in silent pain. And yet, through it all, William said nothing publicly. No statement, no interviews, just stillness, which only made the world want to know more. And at the center of it all was that letter. A page of words, still echoing through royal walls. But what impact would it have on William himself? That's what we explore next. How this moment might forever change the way he sees his destiny. What the letter reveals about William's role. Before the letter, Prince William carried his role like armor, steady, polished, controlled. He was the symbol of royal stability, the perfect heir after a generation of scandal. But the moment he read his grandmother's final words, that image cracked, and something far more real emerged. In her letter, Queen Elizabeth II didn't speak to him as the next monarch. She didn't say, "Your Royal Highness." She said, "William," a name, a grandson, a boy she had watched grow under the weight of royal tragedy. And within those quiet lines, something became clear. She saw his burden before he did. The letter, from what insiders revealed, acknowledged his future, but not as obligation, as identity. There will come a time when you are looked to for strength, but never forget, your strength must come from who you are, not the crown you wear. It was a powerful sentence, one that struck a chord in William's heart. For years, he had played the role perfectly. Dignified, careful, always following the Queen's example. But this letter made him realize she didn't want him to follow her. She wanted him to be himself, to lead not like a monarch of the past, but as a man of the future. This changes everything. Because now, William isn't just a royal upholding tradition. He's a man forced to reevaluate his mission, his legacy, and most of all, the way he honors his grandmother's last request. Some insiders say he's begun reassessing his public image, choosing more personal engagements, opening up more with staff, even revisiting his mother's causes that had once been shelved. Others believe this moment may be the reason William eventually rewrites parts of his future reign, to be less about ceremony and more about meaning. Whatever path he chooses, one thing is certain. The letter didn't just remind him of who he is, it reminded him of who he was always meant to be. Next, we look at the historical weight of this moment and why it may be remembered as the emotional turning point in William's journey to the crown. Historical significance. The letter was more than personal. It was historic. Queen Elizabeth II wasn't just the longest reigning monarch, she was the symbol of restraint, tradition, and emotional distance for over 70 years. Her reign was built on silence, stability, and unwavering public image. But in one private letter to her grandson, that entire image quietly fractured. Because, for the first time, the Queen's voice wasn't calculated for public diplomacy. It was personal, direct, soft, emotional. A private truth, not meant for ceremony, meant for William. And in the stillness after it was read, history changed. Insiders and historians quickly recognized the impact. This was the first true glimpse into Queen Elizabeth's inner world. Not through speeches, not through policy, but through a handwritten message from a grandmother to the future king. It connected the 20th century and the modern monarchy in a way no documentary or biography ever could. Now the conversation has shifted across palace halls and university circles. Was this the only letter she left behind? Or were there more, addressed to Charles, to Harry, even to Kate? And if this one surfaced by chance, what else is still hidden in the royal archives? The emotional weight of the letter is already forcing re-evaluation of the Queen's legacy, not because it changes what she did, but because it shows us who she truly was. A woman who understood that her family would need more than tradition to carry them forward. They would need her words, her wisdom, her warning. And for William, it's more than memory. It's now part of his narrative. A story he didn't choose, but one that may define his future reign. The Queen's silence during life made her voice after death even louder. And now, the monarchy faces a new question. Can it still survive without her, now that her truth has been unsealed? The cliffhanger. What comes next? The letter is open. The pain is real. The crown is quiet. As of now, there's been no official statement from Prince William, and none is expected. But those close to him say everything has changed. Not just his emotional world, but how he sees his role and those around him. There's now a quiet storm brewing inside the palace. The silence isn't calm. It's tense. Because with this one envelope, the careful chain of control has been shaken. A moment that should have brought peace has instead stirred suspicion. Who else knew? Why was the letter delayed? And if this one message carried so much weight, what if there are others? Behind the scenes, whispers are growing louder. Trusted aides believe there may be multiple letters, possibly written in the Queen's final years. Stored, staggered, placed in hands only when the time was right. A message for Harry, perhaps. A bridge that never got to be built. A note for Kate, offering silent approval or advice. Even a possible letter to Charles, one he may have already received, or chosen to hide. The public doesn't know. The family won't say. And that silence is fueling a fire no palace press office can contain. For William, the path forward is fragile. He now holds a message that could redefine his image, shift royal dynamics, and ignite fresh public curiosity. The pressure to release it is growing. But the urge to protect it, to keep it sacred, is just as strong. This is not just a moment. It's the beginning of a transformation. Because William, once viewed as the polished heir, now stands as something more dangerous. A man with motive, message, and a memory. A man who might speak not as a prince, but as a son, a grandson, and perhaps, one day, a monarch with nothing left to hide. If he speaks, the monarchy shifts. If he stays silent, the speculation deepens. And if more letters emerge, everything the crown has kept quiet for decades might come rushing into the light. For now, we are left in the unknown. A letter opened, a prince undone, a legacy rewritten, and the next move still sealed. One letter, one collapse. And now, one question. What will William do next? The crown may never recover from this.